Let's talk about sex.
Hi guys, thank you again for having me here, and we have a very special guest. Her name is Yael Rosenstock. The best thing is that she has been there with Tickle.life from day one, and a lot of things that we people have been doing is just because of her, because she keeps on telling us about different environmental studies that are going on, what's happening around the world, and how we can actually become stronger for not just us, but even for people. So thank you so much, Yael, for being there.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So I'll just start with a little bit of a bio. Like, I can just introduce Yael, and then Yael can take it forward from there. She's the founder, and she's creating a kick-ass company. And I'll suggest you guys to just go and check it out on web. It's called Kaleidoscope Vibration. She's also because she's doing so many things, I really have to write it down. It's amazing. Trust me. She's the co-founder of QC-sexploration, an information group at Queen's College. Something which I really find it interesting. And if you guys are into positive body, sex, body positivity, then you should check out this handle, which is on Instagram, the Diverse Bodies Project. It's amazing, the kind of pictures that these guys keep on posting, and I'm pretty sure Yael is going to explain us more about it. But she also has workshops which are called Body Love Workshops. So yeah, so she's doing a lot. But what I'm really excited about is a new book that's coming out, which I hope I will be able to read very soon. So Yael, so yeah, how is it happening? How did you end up where you are right now?
So I recently started this company, but in actuality, I realized as a kid, I always wanted to do like a gazillion different things. And I was like, I'm going to be an architect. I'm going to be this. I'm going to be that, a psychologist. But I realized a few years ago that from the age of 14 or 15, I've been engaged with sex education. I started as a teen reproductive rights educator for the New York Civil Liberties Union in New York City. And I've been engaged in that work since and helping people answer their questions. If I had information, if I didn't have information, I would go ask my mother, or I'd go to the internet, and I would have these discussions with people so they felt normal about their sexual desires. I also experienced some sexual trauma personally, and so that led me to research the trauma of others and how society treats victims. And once I started having consistently positive sexual experiences, that led me to want to explore the pleasure aspects, right? How do I help other people not just heal from trauma, but also experience pleasure? And so my trajectory has been from good person to talk to, because she doesn't care what you're into as long as you're safe, then like person to talk about your trauma so you don't feel alone, and then now a person to talk about your pleasure as part of your healing or just because you want to have. Led to my book. My book is about communication. Well, first it's about self-awareness. The first section is dedicated to self-awareness, all the different aspects of your sexuality, right? So it's not just your sexual orientation. It's like, are you kinky or vanilla? Do you enjoy topping or bottoming? Are you a giver or taker, right? What is your gender presentation? What is your gender identity? And so all these different pieces that are sometimes ignored and that help you find compatibility with others. The second section is communication, because I think it's really important to have a whole section dedicated to that. Consent is one of the main thing that I've been teaching at Queen's College campus when I do sex education workshops. And the last one is exploration, right? So how do we find out more places to go? Where can we discover things? Are there classes, workshops? And then also learning yourself in a different way. So vulnerability and intimacy with your body, so that you feel vulnerable and intimate with others. So that's been my path.
So since you work with so many young people, what do you think, how positive are they towards their sexuality? Do you see the change happening, or do you still think that there's a long way ahead?
Well, I don't have like a good pre-post, right? Because I'm pretty young. So I've been doing this since I was 14 or 15, but I'm only 28 years old. And so I would say that I was around people who were open to discussing sexuality. What I do find is, like, individually, people will come to me because they see me speak or because I'm in a space, and they ask me questions that are very personal. And then afterwards they'll say, I've never talked about this before. Right. And so I think there is a lot of shame around a lot of the questions that people are asking me and a lot of the discussions that they want to have, which leads them, or just not spaces. Right. This week we actually hosted, we were invited to an expo. And so we had like a little, whatever, not booth, but a section. And someone said, wow, this is really weird. Like, this is what you talk about. You have talk about sex. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, that must be really awkward. And I was like, no, like, people come and they're so, I think, surprised by how easy it is to have these conversations when you're not snickering and it can be fun. I don't mind if people laugh or giggle, but the idea that, like, there is a space dedicated to this, which means that we're used to having these conversations, has helped a lot of people engage in that. But I would say outside of the space, there's a mixture. There are people who talk about sex all the time and feel super confident and excited to explore and non-judgmental of others and their practices. And then you have a whole other group that, like, live in the shadows and are watching carefully and deciding if they want to enter the space. So we do our best at the college to create spaces for everyone. We have a virginity and abstinence group led by someone who either identifies as a virgin or someone who is abstinent. And they have discussions around what those words mean and their practices and why they're there.
And they're pretty open. They're pretty open.
Open only for people who identify that way. Because it's an idea is that in college campuses, being a virgin or abstinent isn't necessarily like a cool thing. Not that it shouldn't be, but like that you're expected to have sex in college, right? And so if you're someone who is either choosing not to have sex or is having trouble finding someone with whom to have sex, then you might feel awkward navigating college spaces. So this group is specifically for those to come together and have conversations around either that decision or that outcome that has occurred. And then we have groups for religious groups, and we have groups for talking about kink.
Yeah. So Yael, what do you think? How does those groups help, in spreading the right messaging of sexuality?
They create support systems and they create normalcy, right? This idea of what's normal. And so many people think that there is a very specific view of normal and that definitions are very concrete. And so when you create spaces for people to break down those definitions or to explore what works for them, and there are other people present and there are other people validating their experiences, it makes them feel normal, which makes them feel more confident.
And which is the biggest misinformation that you think people have about sex? Like, according to you, which is like the top most, like number one?
No, I understand the question. I'm not sure if I really have an answer. We do a survey every year, and the survey's results are very varied. And I have noticed recently that we are added something called how aware are you, or how knowledgeable are you about sex topics? From like 0, I don't know jack, to I'm a sexpert. And let me tell you, there's a lot of people who think they're sexperts who also, like, we had one sexpert, right, who was a male. He said, we asked if orgasm is necessary for sex, which we don't believe it is, right? You can engage in sexual activities and enjoy yourself without orgasm. And he wrote, orgasm is necessary for me and not for her.
Whoa.
Right? So,
That's
yes.
what he said?
Yes. And so these are college students who are taking the survey for the most part, and college students who are reading and doing the data, because this is what's called a participatory action research group, research that's done by the community for the community. And so a lot of them are young ladies, and they were quite furious response. But we had, maybe not that bad, but we had a lot of responses like that, where it's like, yes, I'm amazing in sex, but I don't think my female partner has to get off, or she doesn't always get off, but like I always get off. And it's like, it's interesting that you think you're such an expert, but you don't have the ability to help your partner reach her orgasm, right? And we also ask questions, which is like, we've learned that it's very, very common around sexual health and body. So one of our questions is, you and your partner want to spice up your sex life and at least one of you has a vulva, you are thinking about putting chocolate on the vulva. Should you or should you not? And so people and so people are like, okay, and the questions are, I mean, the answers are, is it safe, not safe? I'm unsure. And it is very common to get unsure. And then when people say it's unsafe, we've had people say, well, you shouldn't eat off of a vagina. That's just not clean. And it's like, well, that's what oral sex is. But the reason the answer is that it's unsafe is that chocolate has sugar, and sugar increases the development of yeast. And so it leads to yeast infections. And a lot of people, both people who have vulvas and people who don't, are unaware that yeast can be caused by sugar. And so putting anything sugary down there is bad. And that's true for people across all ages. I've spoken to like middle-aged women with vulvas, and they were like, whoa, won't do that.
But they don't know why exactly. No.
Well, after I tell them, they know. So we do a lot of, we come up with catchphrases. And so at our workshops, we'll say, no sugar near the vulva is one of our catchphrases. We say, if you have what's called, so there's a neo versus natal vagina. And so, natal is that you were born with the vagina, and neo is that it was constructed. So for trans women, they would have neo vaginas. And so we say no douching if you have a natal vagina, right? So do not try and clean your vagina. It is self-cleaning. And if you have a neo vagina, you should speak to your physician about how you should be taking care of it. But those kind of things. So it's not that I have like a one thing. The research shows that there are people who are very knowledgeable about a lot of things, and then there are people who have different pockets of knowledge or who know nothing.
So when people come to you and they need advice, what kind of advice do you think usually people come with? Are they more to do with their partners, or are they more to do with their, like their own sexuality? If I may put, like would I be more interested to know about my sexuality if I am in a relationship, or would it be more like I'll be more interested if I'm alone? I know it's a very it's a very stupid question to ask, but it's just that, sometimes people just think that sexuality is supposed to be accepted or to be enjoyed when you're in a relationship, but they forget that, you really need to appease yourself as well.
Yeah, I would say that I haven't had anyone come to me asking about masturbation techniques. While we do a workshop on that, I don't think anyone's come to my office specifically around masturbation, but I have spoken to quite a few people, and this is not my subject, but I know someone who has vaginismus, which is a condition in which the vaginal walls contract when something tries to, when something tries to enter, the vaginal walls contract. And this is often caused by a fear that there's going to be pain. And so when the vaginal walls contract, there is pain. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that makes it very difficult to engage in penetrative sex. And so I learned about this through a student of mine who remains anonymous, but allows me to connect her with anyone else in the community who I discover who has this. And so I've learned a little bit from there. So that's as close as I've gotten to like direct personal experience, right? These are young people coming because they're unable to engage in penetrative sex, they're unable to use tampons, and they're just experiencing a lot of pain. And so I walk them through what are some exercises for relaxing those muscles so that you're able to not feel pain. But I then immediately refer them to her because this is not my level of expertise. What I do often do is what I call a sexual identity salon. And I invite people, and my first question is, give me some sexual identities. Right? So here, name a couple sexual identities.
Oh, you're asking me?
Yeah, do it. We'll play.
I'll say heterosexuals, I'll say sapio, I'll say demigod, I'll say transsexual, gays, lesbians. Oh my God, now like somebody's asking me, I'm like, there's so
no.
Not even
but those are all super common responses, right? And all of those except for trans were sexual orientations, right? So even sapio, which is an attraction to like the brain and intellect, those are all things that you are attracted to as an orientation, kind of.
Okay.
And then I expanded. I was like, great, so we have those, and often those are a lot easier for people to figure out about themselves.
Yeah.
But then I go, okay, and I have a quiz of my book about this, but like, when you masturbate, are you thinking about going down on someone? Is that what gets you really excited? Like watching someone squirm and you're teasing them and like their cum is all over you? Or are you dreaming about having someone go down on you and like it's all about you, right? And figuring out where you fall in the spectrum of things that excite you. So that's like the giver taker model. And then I talk about, okay, so do you like to be tied up? Do you like to smack people? Do you like, different forms of bondage? Do you like telling people what to do? Do you enjoy like baby play? So all these different things that go into our sexualities. And so that becomes a conversation with sometimes one person in the room or as many as like 5 to 10, just thinking about the different ways that we can explore our sexuality so they can then go home and look it up. And I always tell them, I don't care if you identify or don't identify with a label. I'm not trying to give you a label. I'm trying to offer you one so you can look at the community and see if it fits. I had one young woman who said she was heterosexual, but really loved having sex with women. And I offered to her, it sounds like you're bisexual or queer, but you're a romantic, because she only wanted to have relationships with men, right? Sex with women, relationships with men, which is heteroromantic.
Yeah.
And she was like, whoa. I was like, but keep calling yourself straight. I don't care. Yeah. That's a you thing. And then also with relationships, people will come in. And I also warn that it's not so much advice, it's just information, right? I don't tell people, go do this to your partner or go tell them this. I say, here are different options that you have in engaging with this topic.
Information is more important because nobody can tell you what you are, how do you feel. It's just, what do you feel and what do you get? Because I think for me, this knowledge has, like since I started working on Tickle.life, before that, I was not conversing with a lot of people who were working in, spreading sexual awareness or positivity. Before that, it was also confusing that for me, if suppose somebody will come and tell me, oh, you know what, I'm bi, I would actually not know how to react to them or how to talk to them, because sometimes you feel as if you're offending them. So I think it's also very important, if the knowledge is being is provided, then people at least start becoming comfortable in what they believe in and they feel, and also in people around. So how does that work? Because like when I was asking you about the different groups that you have, so are there like options where they can talk to each other? Are there like places where, like if I don't know how being a virgin feels anymore, so but the thing is, like, I might have questions, or she might have, or he might have questions. So how does that work? Because that's like the basic premises on which Tickle.life is set, that we all should be together at one place so that we can help each other.
So the only group that is private is the Virginity Abstinence group. Okay. Because it's a like community building group for that population. Every other group, so for example, the BDSM and kink, and we used to have them as groups, and now we have them as events. And we have what's called office hours. So students can come into the office and speak to one of us. I think there's 6 or 7 of us or so, and have private conversations. But if it's a BDSM conversation, you don't have to be interested in BDSM. I had a young woman who said, I'm in a monogamous relationship, and both of us are really happy as monogamous people, but I'm very interested because I'm polyamorous. And so she said that she's really interested in learning. And I said, great. I always lead once a year a polyamorous discussion so people can learn what it is. And most people that come, at least at that point, don't think they're poly, right? We've been raised, most cultures are raising their children and their societies in a monogamous fashion, right? This idea that you should be with one person, and then we're very used to cheating. And, we don't question that so much as to why that might be. And so, and I'm not the only person who's like, yeah, I believe that I am not interested in monogamy, and that I think that there are lots of people like me who just don't realize, and that there are also monogamous people too, sincerely monogamous people. And so that group, for example, is more about just information, because at that time, no one identifies as poly, and then some later on probably do. So all of those groups are open. The only one that isn't, and we could host an event. When we host events are completely open. The only times that things might not be fully open is meetings. And so One of them, for example, we have a religion and culture group. The idea is that we're hoping to host an event for just people who identify as women soon, because some of the population on campus is very religious, right? They're observant in Islam or observant in Judaism. And so division of the genders is required for a lot of activities. And so we figured if you're talking about sex or sex topics, that might be something to do. But then we want to host other events that are open to all the genders so they can ask their questions. But you just have a different audience based upon what's comfortable for them.
So Yael, how do you think that, are they able to accept each other? Are they able to gel with each other, or how difficult it is?
Who?
Like people who, who practice or who identify themselves with a different orientation, when they're together and when they're talking about sexuality, because you're like openly talking about it. It's not like, oh, we're in office people who have different orientations, but they are not there talking about it. So what's the comfort level? What's happening there?
So someone once asked me about this. I haven't had any trolls inside of these spaces, right? So for the most part, you have people who might not have information, right? Someone who's like, I don't know what that word means, or like, I've never even heard of that. Are you sure that's real? But it's not so much that people don't generally go in trying to shut people down. Also, we start every single workshop with a set of community guidelines. So our favorite is don't yuck my yum, right? And so don't yuck my yum means if I say something, you do not have the right to go, ew, right? You can say, oh, I'm not interested in that. And that's totally cool. You don't have to be interested in what someone else is interested in, but you do not have the right to say you're disgusting. I can't believe you're into that. What's wrong with you? And if you do, then one of us will escort you out to have a conversation around how to engage with other people in a shared space. But we haven't had to do that, right? Like people understand, okay, that's what they're into. It's not what I'm into. And that's okay. I haven't had someone come in and be like, I hate gay people or I hate straight people. That hasn't been my experience as of yet. But if it were, we have people assigned to take them out of the room and have a conversation.
You have this very interesting chapter called Partnering Style.
Yes.
What's it all about? Like, I'm really curious because, like, what are you getting out of that chapter?
Sure. That's one of the last chapters in the self-awareness section. And that has to do with monogamy and polyamory. I think, so I am someone who loves being in a relationship and also can have very casual sex. And I'm aware of that for myself. But I've met a lot of people who think that they like casual sex and who in the end feel hurt because they feel connected and they don't have that shared connection with the other person who was in fact casual. And so this whole section is around learning who you are and then seeking out people based upon that, right? The idea that there's no reason for you to be into hookups just because we currently have a culture of hookups.
Yeah, true.
It's all right to love monogamy. It's all right to love being in love. Like, if that is you, embrace it. And so I talk about what those different relationship styles look like and how to explore them and how to communicate what it is that you're seeking. So if you're on Tinder, which is often like a hookup site, you can say, I'm looking for someone who will want to care deeply with me at some point, right? I'm not looking for something short-term, and that's fine. People seem to love to pretend that they want something that they don't want. Like, yeah, I'm totally up for a one-night stand. It's like, but you're not. So don't say that you are. Because if you say what you want, you're more likely to get what you want.
But then how can you even be sure that what you want?
Well, that involves self-reflection. And so that's part of why I detail what are the different types of ways to engage in a relationship. So you can think about, does this sound good? Does it resound with me? Like, do I feel like I could be happy with that sort of connection? But that has a lot to do with being honest with yourself, right? People are like, yeah, that sounds great. And then they haven't actually done the work of seeing if that's true for them. And that's how they end up in spaces that don't feel good.
True.
I also recommend that you talk to your partners quite consistently about whether or not the current dynamics are working. And if they are, fantastic. And if they aren't, figuring out what needs to change so those dynamics work for both of you. Or perhaps those dynamics don't work.
And if you do not have a partner, then?
If you don't have a partner, you should be figuring out what it is that you do want. And so you're saying if you've never had a partner, how do you know if you're monogamous or polyamorous? Well, that'll be trial and error. Sorry, there's like dust. That'll be trial and error, right? So if you go on a few dates and you recognize that each time you feel like a desire to continue with this person, or you feel that you feel committed to this one person and you don't want to try someone else, that gives you an inkling that you're monogamous. If you're dating like 3 different people and you feel very confident about that and comfortable, and you're telling them as well, and that feels good to you, then you might be polyamorous, right? Because you're balancing those different things. If you have been in one committed relationship for a long time and you deeply, deeply love that person, but you just still want to be having sex or dating other people, that's another sign that you're probably polyamorous.
Yeah.
You can be deeply committed to this one person you've been with and then recognize, but it doesn't make sense for me to just be with them because I have desires that aren't in that direction. So I think in that way it's trial and error, but I think so much of it is just being willing to listen to your mind and your heart.
Was that I have changed
Mm-hmm.
after being openly talking about sexuality and positivity. And it's been a very interesting journey. So I'm pretty sure you must be having friends who are not into sex education, who are not openly talking about sexuality. Do you sometimes feel the difference between how you have shaped your life and how they are? Do you see the difference? Do you see a way of like difference in understanding things?
So I would say that a lot of people I interact with are comfortable with discussing some aspects of sexuality. The other part is that even if they aren't normally, then we often talk about it anyway because I talk about it all the time. Like, it's hard to be my friend and not talk about sex. So don't try and be my friend, I guess, if you don't want to talk about sex. But I do have friends who are more quiet about their sexuality, with whom I've had private conversations, because maybe the space, when we've been in group spaces, they've been like, why is everyone talking about this? But one-on-one I have. And some of them actually are quite aware of themselves. They just don't like to talk to random people about it, right? They might talk to their partner, which is totally cool. Not everyone has to talk about sex as if they're talking about the weather like I do. I do think that when people are more standoffish and want to shut down the conversations, it often has to do with shame, that it's centered around shame, that this is not a respectable conversation to be having. It's wrong, it's dirty. And so if they're shutting down like that and then they don't want to have a follow-up conversation, then I wonder if they're having negative sexual experiences, or how much they're enjoying their sex lives, because there seems to be, and I can't be sure, but there seems to be a cloud of negativity around this topic, and it makes it difficult to really enjoy yourself if you think that it's bad.
Okay, since we've been like talking for a while now, I just had like 2 questions from you. Yeah. First was, why a book? Why do we need
Sure. So I speak to people a lot. I'm a quite outgoing person. And I use my own narratives. Like I share a significant part of my narratives to help people relate, because I think there's a lot of, right, the Me Too movement. Me Too is everywhere. But I recognized that if I were to write my experiences down and explain like some of the journey that I've taken and the things that I've learned, both through negative and positive experiences, that means that many more people can experience that information, and that they don't have to go to my workshops. They don't have to come in person. And so if you don't like to go to sex workshops, which is true for a lot of people, you can just buy the book secretly and read it by yourself, right? And gain some of that knowledge and experience. And I can't go over everything that's in the book in a workshop anyway. It would take a long time because there's a lot of different sections. And so actually a lot of my workshops are in that book in some way or form, because there's so many different topics covered. It was just an opportunity to get more people access to that kind of information in a relatable form that was positive and inclusive.
Okay. And when is it out?
So this week I will be receiving the copy to proof. The physical, everything's been proofed already, but to just make sure that the book looks beautiful, because I like beautiful things. And so then I will be sending any final edits of periods and what have you to the formatter, which means that I should have it up on Amazon within 3 weeks.
That means
and then
November. 15th of November?
No, it should be before that. Probably more like the 7th of November.
7th of November. Okay.
Yeah, because the whole process seems to take a long time. But I'm expecting it should be up on Amazon by then. And then I've been pre-selling. So the first, I think, 100 people to buy get it for $10 if they buy through me. And then they can go to Amazon, which it's $12.99, I believe, on Amazon.
Oh, that's great. So I'm pretty sure that we are going to be having more of these chats. But for the first chat, what is like the parting things that you think that people should be thinking of or doing right now? People who could not be a part of your workshops, or who will not be able to read your book, or just like watching it and maybe a little skeptical of openly talking about sex. So what should be the first thing that they should just be doing after watching this?
They should be having a conversation with themselves, right? What is it that you're interested in? Why do you want to have sex if you want to have sex? Because if you're asexual, then you probably don't want to have sex. If you've experienced sexual trauma, you may be interested or you may not be. There's different responses. But if you are someone who wants to engage in sex, what are your motives? What excites you about it? Is it purely the physical pleasure? Is it connection with someone else? Is it the opportunity to provide someone an amazing experience? Because my thing is consent and boundaries, I really want people to think about that, right? Why are you engaging in an experience that is shared? Because you can masturbate. You don't have to have shared sex. You can have solo sex. But if you're going to have shared sex, thinking about your values and recognizing that you should want for the other person to have a positive experience and to leave that space happy and not scarred or upset or meh even. So just thinking about prioritizing what your thoughts are around sex and how to have that experience. And also that sex is all the things, right? When I say sex, I don't mean penetration of penis into vagina. I mean fingering. I mean anal rimming. I mean all those things. So broadening that idea so that everyone who's involved in this interaction feels pleasure.
Thank you so much. That was amazing.
Thank you. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure we're doing a lot of them because we have a lot of topics to catch hold of. It's like sex is not like just like a 30-minute or a 40-minute chat that we can have. Never.
No, so long.
Yeah. So thank you, guys. Thank you from Yael, and thank you from Shakun. See you soon. And if you have not, and Yael, I think even you have not yet, so we are already live on the App Store, at least for the initial users. So please go, let's start creating groups. Let's start talking to people who are not ready to come out. Let's be anonymous and let's communicate with each other. Just go on to the iOS app. Just type Tickle.life and that's how you get it.
Perfect.
Okay. All right. Bye. See you soon. See ya.
Bye.
Let's talk about sex.